Hello, my name is Kai, and this is going to be my quick guide on Cassante Macro. I am a almost Grandmasters Garen Cassante 2 trick. I have a background in competitive, working with Roxa Esports as a sub right now, and I feel qualified enough to talk about this. I've noticed that I've seen a lot of lower elo players struggling with Cassante macro, which is understandable. Tanks in general have very complex macro that aren't really simplified because a lot of educational videos tend to go about more carry-oriented top laners like the bruisers, the fighters, and there really isn't a lot of educational content for the tanks. So I figured I would make this. Now, the structure of the video is going to go something like this. I have annotations on the side by this wonderful website called insights.gg. I love it. I use it for all of my VOD reviews. I'm going to be going over, as you can see by this very elegant title, I'm going to be going over a VOD by one of the best Korean challenger Casantes in the world. I'm going to talk about what he does in his macro and how you can replicate that in your own games. I'm going to talk about Casante's goals and weaknesses, and I'm going to talk about what Cassante wants to achieve in his laning phase. Let's get started. Now, I'm going to mute this video because I don't think it's super important to hear the audio. The first thing to notice is that Aatrox doesn't arrive immediately to lane, and the enemy bot lane did, so it's fair to assume that Echo is leashing, thus Echo's probably pathing down. We see that Lee Sin right over here is pathing topside, so we can assume that we're going to be strong-sided, and Aatrox is going to be weak-sided. Now, of course, Echo can do a 3-camp topside, which is a clear that Echo likes doing because it's surprisingly fast on him for some reason, so that is something that we have to look out for. But otherwise, for the most part, we can assume that we're going to get more jungle attention. Notice by this bush, this is pre-season 14, but the concept should stay the same. Now we're going to notice that Cassante goes for a 2-wave crash. The idea behind this is that you can have the wave rebound on wave 3. On wave 4, it's going to be near your tower, so you can hold a freeze and you can look for a gank with Lee Sin. However, what this Cassante does instead is he acknowledges, ooh, actually, ganking a level 4 Aatrox as Cassante Lee Sin with a huge wave maybe isn't the greatest idea. There's a lot of potential for us to get 1v2'd, so instead, he just keeps pushing, and he uses this push to secure prio for Scuttlecrab. Now, he trades a lot more than I would ideally like, but I think it's fine in solo queue. I wouldn't do it yourself. This guy's obviously smurfing, though. He's Korean challenger. It's fair to assume he probably knows what he's doing, or he's going against a player he just doesn't respect. But the idea behind trading as hard as he is, pushing the wave as hard as he is because since he's getting their jungle attention, it potentially sets up for a gank. Now, he didn't manage to get Aatrox super low, but he did manage to chip at him a bit. What we're going to notice soon is that Cassante is going to help set up a gank with Aatrox. A big thing to know with is Cassante in general is that your 2v2 post 6 is really strong, but pre 6 you still have really good ganks set up. And it's really important to know how to play around the jungle, especially because in 2v2s pre 6 you typically lose because Cassante is just a weak 2v2 champion pre 6. He needs his ultimate to be able to truly fight. This is why I don't like trading so much, because in the case that you mess up, or not even mess up, in the case that Aatrox just hits his Qs, it's just so bad for you. But it works out, you get Aatrox's flash, and from here, there's not a whole lot more to say about the laning phase. I mean, Cassante just hits level 6, he TP's back with the Chain Vest, or Sheen. He uses his flash to force an ult angle, and he kills Aatrox. There's not a whole lot to say about this laning phase, so I'm gonna skip it. Now let's go to 1437, which is where the laning phase ends. Cassante's tower is down. The first objective post-laning phase is spawn, and this is where I'm going to talk about more of Cassante's goals and weaknesses. Now, Cassante's goals is to scale. He's really good with gold and levels. I'm sure you've seen plenty of Cassante clips late game of him just shredding through teams, mowing them down. He wants to defend his carries because at the end of the day, he's a tank. He can't, or just melee champions in general, he can't do everything on his own. If he tries to 1v5 with ult, he's just gonna get crowd controlled. He's gonna be really sad. He can't 1v5 as a tank because he needs to play around his carries, and he's got a lot of ways to do that with his E-shield and most importantly, his ability to knock someone back with W or even kidnap them with ult. Furthermore, his other goals are to stall out the game and to teamfight. Kasante's really good at stalling out games because it's really hard to go into him, because if you engage on Kasante, he can mitigate a lot of the damage with the W, he can ult someone away, and in teamfights, he's a tank. Not a whole lot to say there. Some of his weaknesses include his low movement speed. A lot of people don't know this, but Kasante is actually tied for the lowest or the second lowest. I believe it's the lowest, though. Movement speed in the game. It's really bad. For comparison, let's look at Garen. 10 movement speed is a lot more than you might think it is. Because that means that your rotations, let's say you're going from top to mid, that's now 2 seconds slower. About. And that adds up as you're rotating around the map over time. So typically we only want to rotate to fights if we know that a fight's gonna break out, or if we have teleport. We've got a shit landing phase. Absolute dog shit. Which is why I really hate trading on Kasante. It's not even just an Aatrox specific thing. Like into any meta bruiser, Rumble, Aatrox, Garen, Darius. I just hate trading in general. It's just bad. Trading pre-6 feels shit. And I really only like trading when the opponent makes a mistake or tries to initiate the fight, because then I can use my defensive tools. Defensively, and not offensively. He needs resources. You've seen Fed Kasante clips, but have you ever seen behind Kasante clips? No, because his champion is so useless when he's behind. It's horrible. It's just bad. And then he's got poor engaged. This seems really contradictory, but his engaged is effectively EW. You have like a solid second to react to that. It's not a strong engage. And if you engage like that, you don't have your damage reduction when you're actually in the fight. It's bad. You can kidnap someone, I guess, but that kind of relies on your opponents giving you the kidnap angle, which is more on them than anything. It's just not good. With this in mind, typically what we're going to see with Kasante is he's going to try and rotate first to objectives, usually with TP, because rotating first with just movement speed is bad on Kasante. He's going to try and rotate with TP. He's going to try to use the fact that he scales so well, and he's going to try and get a lot of side lane waves. He can duel people comfortably, so he's okay doing that. And he can also 1v2 because he can kidnap people. He can force isolated 1v1s. He's okay if he gets collapsed on most of the time. So he's just going to typically be pushing a side lane opposite from the objective. The second that the objective spawns, he's going to teleport, and he's going to start hitting the Drake to force a fight. Because if you're Kasante, you want to force the fights to come to you, not the other way around. And you can do that by hitting the objective. And I don't think this is a great example of this. I think at 29 minutes, we see a good example of this. They are currently skirmishing over what I believe is the bot tower. I think there was a skirmisher on bot tower somewhere here, and then it led to a bigger skirmish, and now Kasante teleports in the middle of it. It's really good to teleport in the middle of it as Kasante, because that means that, once again, people are coming into you. It's great. And now that he's been in this side lane for so long, he's gotten so many just minion waves, he's gotten so much XP, so much gold, he can scale wall. He's chilling. That's a Kasante game plan in a nutshell. Now, if we already go back, and Vincent.gg is below my comments, thank you. Let's first start with the first objective. Now, this isn't really a Kasante specific thing, but I thought I would include anyways. You'll notice, Yone's team is very mad at him. Because Drake is up, and he is hitting top tower. He's hitting top tower. Why is this grief? Well, you have to recall if you want to make it to the objective. Which means that Kasante's team is going to be able to get there first and set up vision. I don't know if you've ever tried to face check an objective. It doesn't matter if it's low elo. I think people who say vision doesn't matter in low elo are just stupid. Like, here's the thing. Vision doesn't matter as much in low elo, and it's probably not one of the things you should be focusing on. But these videos are not targeted towards lower elo players. Like, no lower elo player should be on Kasante. So if I'm going to talk about Kasante, I'm going to assume you're a higher elo player, and I'm going to talk about these concepts that are very important higher elo. But, like, I don't know if you've ever tried to face check an objective without vision. It's horrible. Especially into Alistar, Leah, Cassante. It's not fun. So since Cassante's team is able to get there first, because they notice... Like, look at this Leah. The second he notices, oh shit, Yone's recalling, he immediately goes bot. Xayah literally cancels her recall. I don't actually know what she's doing. But she eventually goes bot. Alistar goes bot. And even though Cassante's top, he's technically two places at once because of his teleport. And, yeah, Yone's team is very mad at him. They get the Drake. Pretty self-explanatory. Another important thing to notice. Yone matches Cassante in the side lane here. And despite the fact that Yone is 9-0, to be honest, Cassante could probably win this, because Yone's flash is down. But he doesn't even fight it. Not because, oh, I can't beat Yone in the 1v1. He probably could, let's be real. Cassante is kind of overpowered right now. It's more just he knows, oh, my team's getting Drake. There's no real need for me to do anything. This is what we call a forced mistake right here. Where there's no real point in trading with Echo, because they're both just going to recall anyways, and there's no lethal on Echo because he's just going to ult. But a forced mistake is where you test your opponent to see, do you actually know? Do you actually know that? Not really. It's not a specific thing, just something important to talk about. 1509. Yeah, okay. 1631. Notice how Cassante isn't really fighting Yone in the side lane. The thing about fighting Cassante is that you either go for the all-in or you don't fight at all, because your champion literally doesn't have sustain. Which is kind of the way he's balanced. It's kind of like Olaf, where yes, he's really overtuned in his ult, and there's no excuse for it, but at the very least, if you cut it out, he's kind of useless. So he doesn't really trade in the side lane. He comes to an objective, or not objective, he comes to a skirmish that's spawned from Scuttle Crab and Bot Tower. And he just fights. There's not a whole lot to say about it. He was just in the right place in the right time. He identified the objective that were spawning. And with this many people, eventually someone's going to get engaged on. That's what happens. Cassante is there. An important thing to notice is that Cassante isn't too worried about peeling for his team here because he identifies, oh, I have Taliyah, Xayah with old Alistar. They're going to be pretty self-sufficient. I don't really have to worry about them. But if Cassante was with a different team, his priority would probably shift to peeling for them. Because they have Echo, Rell, Yone, Kai'Sa. It's scary. And especially Aatrox. It's kind of scary if they manage to get into the backline. But yeah, as you can see, Aatrox starts to go for flank. It completely fails because Taliyah and Xayah are just self-sufficient. Most of the time, you're just sitting on your carries, tanking, and then the second you get a kidnap angle, you go for it. Team fighting at Cassante is something more abstract, and it has to be taught on a play-by-play basis, so I can't really give you any real guidelines for it. But like the general concept is that carries first, and then once you've seen old angle, you go for it. And then again, he's comfortable with his peeling surviving, even a Rell engage like that, because there's Xayah. I think it's kind of a dick move to make your Xayah use flash like that, but hey, it works. Okay, let's talk about something this Korean Challenger doesn't do well. By the way, Korean Challenger, not as crazy as you would think it is, I'm telling you. If you want to make it to high elo, you really can. Well, a big problem here. The second this Rift Herald is dead, Baron is up. Like I said with Cassante, you need to get to an objective first. But he doesn't. And his entire fucking team dies. But it's important to note, it actually goes well for him. Something I like that this Cassante does. Okay, here's the thing. This fight should not have gone well. I just want to establish this. Like, his Alistar is dead. This should be horrible. It's just Kai'Sa completely griefs. But this gives me a nice segue into a next concept. Flanking or pushing for the enemy backline can be an alternative way of peeling as Cassante. Because if you force the enemy front line to come into you... Okay, he kind of griefs by following here. This is stupid. But if you force the enemy front line to answer you, they're not answering your backline, and that's an alternative way of peeling. Okay. Another concept. Walking down mid. If you have nothing pressing to do in the side lane, always walk down mid so that you can contest mid prio. and so that you can help your team set up vision. That's not the right site. League of Legends map. Well, planner, here we go. What'll happen a lot in high elo is that if, let's say, you get side lane prio and someone's forced to answer to side lane, you have 4v5 in mid. Mid, typically, you'll get mid prio, and then since you have mid prio, you effectively have a walking ward that is your wave. It's here, you have full vision of this mid lane, and you know where the enemy team is because they're catching that mid lane. You now have full ability to get vision anywhere you want over here. Let's say Drake's up, right? Let's say Drake's up here. Now you're chilling. You've just gotten Drake for free. So if you have nothing better to do as a tank, go mid. It's pretty nice. Another great peeling moment. I like this, so I'm gonna show it. Notice how K'Sante right here, he's got a huge angle. He's 1v2ing Rell and Echo, but the second he realizes, oh shit, Aatrox and Yone are in my backline, he immediately leaves. Because that's the thing about K'Sante, you have to realize you're not a self-sufficient champion. Team over me, unless you're like... Actually, no, not unless you're ridiculously fed. Always team over me. Almost always. I mean, and then there's this. I don't know. I just feel like it's nice to show. It shows that pro players... I'm assuming this guy's a pro player. Pro players aren't immune to making mistakes. XD. I don't know why he did that, actually. Okay. That should be it covering K'Sante Macro. As a recap, you want to scale with gold and levels, you want to defend carries, you want to stall out game, and you want to team fight. So you're going to push out side lane so that you can scale and stall the game, and then you're going to teleport so that you can get there first because you have poor engage, you have low movement speed, and you need resources. So you need to be able to shove side lane, you need to be able to get those waves, and then you need to be able to rotate to a fight. And you need to get there first because you've got poor engage. You need to force fights to come to you by hitting an objective. There you go. That's K'Sante Macro. Hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it.